All right, you creative people, this is part 2 of our traditional rose tattoo design process. If you haven't watched part 1, make sure to check it out because I taught you how to draw this rose freehand style as if you were using Sharpies on the skin. And now that we have our design outlines made, we're going to go through and do some amazing coloring to make this thing come to life. Let's dive in. All right, we're back here with part 2. We've got our rose outline that's already been created. So you can see my layers here. Remember, we went through and we did our rough sketch, and then we did our clean lines and added a few little details to it. So the next step that I'm gonna do is I'm going to hide those layers that we don't need, and I'm gonna merge my clean line layers. So this one and this one. I'm gonna group those, and then I'm just gonna tap that, and I'm gonna click flatten. So now I have those all on one layer. And the next thing I wanna do is I want to turn this layer to black, because right now it's purple, and when I'm tattooing this, I'm gonna use black. So I go up to my adjustments panel, I click hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'm just gonna turn the brightness all the way down, and this is gonna give me nice black lines. Okay, so back in our layers panel, now I want to click on that outline layer, and I just want to click reference. So what this does, I can create a new layer underneath, and now I can drag and drop colors, and they're going to fill the shapes that I've already created, just like that. So this is why it's so important to have your lines connected, because otherwise you're going to end up with something that just turns into a mess. So I don't need my markers anymore. I'm going to get rid of this reference layer, and we're just going to start coloring this thing in. I think that I want to do the rose in blue. So let's pick a nice blue color. This one looks nice. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop. So I click my color, drag it, and drop it. And I can slide the slider if I need to. You can see what happens if I go too far. So I'm going to make sure I have it at a spot where it fills in my lines nicely. Now you know just a button up here that says continue filling. I'm going to click that, and now I can just click and drop my color in these areas. So these are all the areas that I want to be blue. Now I'm going to create another layer, and I'm going to do the same thing for my leaves. I think for leaves, we're going to go with a nice green color. So drag that down, and I'm going to click continue filling, and I'm going to fill all of these little pieces in. And you can see I went too far there, so I got to redo that. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to drag. You can see my threshold at the top here. Dragging it. Click, and just keep clicking away. So what happened here is I accidentally clicked my line, and what it did is it created a green halo around my line. So you want to make sure you click in the white space. So now we've got our greens on one layer, our blues on one layer, and our lines on another layer. I'm going to create my next layer, and I think I'll pick a nice yellow to go in the center of those leaves. You can pick any color you want. It really doesn't matter at this point. Especially when you're using Procreate, it's so easy to change your colors around. And I think I'll use that same color for these parts of the petals. Now for this area in the middle, I feel like it needs to be blue, so I'm going to go back to my blue layer. I'm going to press and hold to pick that blue color that I used, and then I'll just drag and drop that down. Now I want it to have a little bit of an edge on there, So I'll just use my eraser tool, make sure I have my airbrush selected because that's what I like to use right now. And I'm just gonna go and create a little bit of a lip around there. All right, we're looking pretty good. So the next step is I don't actually want these to be black, these lines on the inside. I want them to be blue, or I don't want them at all. So I'm going to click my reference image and I'm gonna mask it. So I click it, I click mask, creates a layer mask, and then I'm gonna go with a black. Make sure I'm using my airbrush, and I'm just gonna get rid of these because I don't need them right now. And if I did something like that and I made a mistake and I accidentally masked out my outline that I want, I just go back up to my color picker and I click white. Again, making sure I have the layer mask selected, and I can use the white to put it back in. That's the beauty of layer masks. Now, the smart thing to do would have been to keep these lines on a separate layer, but I wasn't really thinking and I merged everything together. So that's okay. You're always going to run into problems and mistakes and things that need to be fixed when you're doing this creative process. So just learn to expect that and adapt to whatever kind of situation or challenges come your way. Part of being a tattoo artist is being versatile, and you're always going to have problems on the skin that you have to be able to think your way through. All right, looks like we've gotten rid of all of that. Looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of shading. So I'm going to create a layer on top of my blue, and I'm going to clip it. So I just tap that and I create a clipping mask. And what this does is it means that no matter what I do, it's only going to affect that layer. You can see that. So I'm going to find a nice brush that I want to use for my shading. I'm going to stick with some of the basic Procreate brushes that everybody has access to. I think that the charcoals are nice. Let's try it out and just see how it looks. Not quite what I'm going for. Let's try 4B. Now I think that's gonna work, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn my reference layer off for now. So I'll go back up to my line work layer where it says reference. I'm gonna tap that, turn off my reference. Then I'm gonna come back down to my blue layer and I'm gonna use my selection tool, clicking automatic, and I'm gonna select that. So that way I'm not messing around with anything else. I go to my clipping mask layer, turn my brush size up, and I can just start to shade in from the corners. Especially in a traditional tattoo design like this, you really want to have some solid blacks to anchor it in. I think contrast is really, really important in any tattoo because number one, it makes it look better. Having dark contrast makes your lighter values look so much lighter and more vibrant color-wise. But it's also going to hold up a lot better over time. So we've done this. We're going to repeat the process and do this for every leaf now. Every petal, sorry. So you can see I made a mistake here where I actually put my black on top of my blue layer. I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to undo that. You want to make sure you're on the correct layer. So this is my shadow layer, and I'm just going to redo that. look at that, I did it again. Let's undo that. Go back up to the right layer. It's really easy to get confused, so you really have to pay attention to what you're doing. There we go, we've got all our blacks put in over top of our blue, and it's on a separate layer here, so I can just turn it on and off. Oh my god, look at that, I did it again. I put the blacks on the wrong layer. Let's undo that. And let's redo that on the correct layer. The easiest thing to do to avoid that is actually just to take your layer that you don't want to color on and lock it. So you just swipe right and you click lock. And this means now if I try to color on it, it's going to say that the layer's locked. So I should have done that from the beginning, but it's not normally a problem I have. I feel like I'm just jinxed because I'm making a video right now. Anyways, this is what we've got. Now I want to add a bit more shading into the yellow pieces. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to lock this layer, create a layer on top of it, and then create a clipping mask. So again, that's the only layer we can make effects to. And if you look closely, you can see that I actually overshot my edge a little bit. That's no problem because I can just take my eraser and erase that out. And you see what that does, just gets rid of it. Obviously you can't do this on skin, but you're going to be a bit more methodical when you're using needles on someone's skin. Now I think we'll just do a little bit up in here and a little bit up in here, just a little bit in the corners. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I actually feel like I want the yellow bits to be a bit brighter, so I'm gonna go to my yellow layer. It's this one here. I'm gonna unlock it, and I'm gonna go up to my adjustments panel, and I'm gonna go hue, saturation, brightness. And I'm just gonna take the saturation up to where I feel like it looks good, so a little bit brighter. So that's where I had it. That's what it is now. I don't know how much you can actually see on screen, but it does make a difference. Alright, so our final step is I want to add some shading into the leaves. So we're going to do the exact same process. I'm going to find my leaf layer, I'm going to lock it, create a layer on top, clipping mask, and then go through and add some shadows to my leaves. And you can do this any number of ways you want. I typically will just start from the center where the vein is and create a bit of a shadow on the outside here. And I also want to create a shadow where the petal or the leaves sit underneath the rose. Looks pretty good. Now we're just going to repeat this for the rest of the leaves. Now I'm doing this kind of quickly for the video. I don't want to bore you with the same thing over and over. But when you're making these designs, definitely take your time, put the energy into it. It's totally worth it, especially when someone's paying you to put it on their skin. Don't be one of those tattoo artists that just puts in the minimum just to make a few bucks. Make sure you give your clients something that's quality, that you're proud of, that they're proud of, and that you want to show off to the world. And there we go, everything's colored in. Now the only thing that I think I might want to do is I might try adding a little bit of background. So let's go underneath of everything, create a new layer, and I don't know, why don't we try doing something kind of like a red. And I make my brush pretty big. And you can see it's coloring in some areas where I don't want it to be colored, but that's fine. We can fix that up after. Just give it like a nice kind of spit shading look. out from the edges. I don't know if this is going to look good or not, but we're going to try it out. And this is the benefit of creating digital designs first, is because you get to experiment and see what looks good and what doesn't. So to get rid of our red from inside of the petals, we're going to go up to our line work layer. I'm going to select that. Using my selection tool on automatic setting, I'm just going to click outside and it selects all of that. Okay, the next step that I want to do is I'm coming down here, click invert. So now I have only the inside of the flower selected. And I'm going to go down to my red layer and I'm just going to click mask. Okay, and see what that's done. Now we want to go to our mask, click that and click invert. And there we go. We have all of our red on the outside of our design. Now I think that this looks pretty good. I would encourage you to create your own rose design and tag me in it on Instagram. I want to see what you're working on. And if you have any other designs that you want me to see, any questions, any comments whatsoever, make sure to leave a comment down below on this channel, along with liking and subscribing. I really want to create awesome videos for you, and your feedback helps a ton. So I hope this was beneficial for you, and I will see you next time in the artist room.